Good morning, FCA students. This is Nathan Johnson from Victory Baptist Church. I just want to give you a very quick challenge this morning. And that challenge is all going to be encapsulated, if that's a word, in one word. And that is the word listen. Could I encourage you to listen to God today? There are so many voices in our world that demand our attention. And John, here in the Bible from First John, he was explaining this to the believers there during his time as he writes his epistle. It says in First John 4:1, he says, Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. John was facing a very similar problem that we face today, and that is there are so many voices that are saying so many different things. And so what we have to realize and try to understand is that God has the voice of truth, but yet there are so many other voices that try to overtalk what God is trying to speak to us about. Jesus had this problem as well. In Matthew 13, he explains to his disciples why he speaks to people in parables, and he was specifically speaking to this multitude. And he says, For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their eyes are dull of hearing. Their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. Jesus was facing that problem as well, that dull of hearing. And so my challenge to us today, students, would be to hear and to listen to God's voice. Elijah was hiding himself in a cave, and he thought he was the only one that was doing right. He thought he was the only one, righteous one left that had any desire to please God and follow God. And 1 Kings 19 verse 11 says, God said, and he said, Go forth and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake, and after the earthquake a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And then after the fire, a still small voice. Man, there were so many loud, distracting, huge things that were taking place just in that passage. And Elijah, and it wasn't God that told him to do that; his servant did, and that's when the Lord passed by. But there were so many things that could have distracted Elijah, and maybe even thinking, hey, maybe God is speaking through this earthquake. But yet it was after the wind, and it was after the earthquake, and it was after the fire that the still small voice came. And God wasn't in any of those things besides the latter, that still small voice. And so today, could I encourage you, students, don't be distracted by the voices that you hear, whether that's on the TV, whether that's through the music you listen to, maybe the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever social media platforms you're involved in. Let's be careful on what we allow ourselves to listen to. It's one thing to hear, but it's another thing to listen and actually start to believe the voices that we hear. We've got to be careful, and we've got to distinguish that still small voice that God is trying to speak to us about, that thread of truth. And so today, could I encourage you, just as it's a challenge to me, let's listen to God. Let's hear what God's word has to say. Let's let his leadership guide our path today, and let's not let the media, let's not let the your news channel or whatever news you follow on social media, let's not let that affect how we live our lives for Christ. Let's just stay true to God, and let's listen for that still small voice. Let's not be accused of being dull of hearing, as Jesus described the people that he was talking to. My son, Michael, he's 2.5 years old, and there are many times, and he's good for the most part, but there are many times where maybe he's trying to do something that I don't approve of, and I try to tell him and get him to look at me, get him to stop what he's doing and do what's right. And when I try to get his attention, I say, Michael, listen to me or look at me. There are some times that he chooses to look out of the corner of his eye and tries to pretend that he doesn't really hear me. And I feel like sometimes that's how we can be with God. Even though we hear God's voice, we selfishly want to keep doing what we're doing as well. And we want to selfishly listen to those other voices that may appear more attractive to us at the time. But let's let this challenge us that we should listen to God's voice, and let's have our hearts open. Let's not be accused of having a heart that is wax gross. Let's not be accused of having eyes that see not and ears that hear not. But let's try our best to be obedient to God, to listen to God's voice, that still small voice, and let that guide us in our everyday. Let's not let those other voices that go against God's voice direct us. And let's stay faithful to Him during this time. God bless you, students, and I hope you have a great day today. And I understand that we're out of school for the rest of the year, so we may not see you until the next school year. But stay faithful to God, do what's right, and I know God is in control and He is faithful to us, and so let's stay faithful to Him. God bless you. Have a great day.